1980 to 1985 and in the legal department of the World Bank as a legal counsel from 1986 to 2007. She's a Yale Law School graduate. In 1999, Karen reported on the corrupt takeover of the Philippines National Bank, earning herself a reprimand and eventually the sack. She's been exposed to integrity and due process failures of major institutions such as the US General Accountability Office, or GAO, in examining her claims against the World Bank. Karen went on to establish a number of oversight committees under the auspices of the American Bar Association and the US branch of the International Law Association. She's teamed up with other whistleblowers to compare notes on such issues as insider trading and inaccurate financial reporting. Because of her wide-ranging contacts, Karen has much to divulge about what's going on behind the scenes with elite factions, hidden power structures, and global puppet masters. Today she'll be spilling the beans on what she's learned on the global currency wars, the real power behind the Vatican, what's happened to those missing stashes of gold, is there a secret parallel humanoid race, and the agenda to control or enslave humanity or not. Her intention is to expose the corruption which dominates our world and to make sure that we rise up to it. Please give her a big, warm Nexus Conference welcome, Karen Hooties.
Thank you very much, Duncan. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here. There have been so many years that as a whistleblower, you try to find your audience and you're chasing them. And here you are. So it's a real celebration and it's a privilege. And I have to tell you that I've been on a very steep learning curve, but it's gotten very steep today too, Duncan. Thank you so much for this Nexus conference. I just wanted to start out, first of all, by saying that you see my website URL. There's a contact page. And if you have any questions, please ask them. And I deal in documentation. If there's something that I say and I can't back it up, and it turns out that it's wrong, I'll retract it because my intention is to get to the bottom of whatever it is that's keeping us in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I can tell you, one of the criticisms that I take the deepest to heart is that I'm leading people into a false sense of security, that humanity is about to be wiped off the face of the earth, and I'm telling everybody that it's exactly the opposite. We're about to come into our inheritance. But it's not going to be automatic. I'm holding all of you in this audience accountable for getting your government to get you your gold. So let's go to the first slide. That's your gold. It's 1,750,000 metric tons. Where is it? First of all, it's in a special trust account that was set up by Ferdinand Marcos. He was doing this as a young lawyer for Jose Rizal, who had been in the Vatican for many years. Jose Rizal was the son of Prince Talano, who was a twin of Queen Victoria. And the royals have kept the world's gold for themselves, and then it was stolen from them by the banks. And what happened is Prince Jose Rizal didn't like what he saw at the Vatican, and so he came back to the Philippines with the Vatican's gold. The Vatican sent the gold to the Philippines for safekeeping, and what Jose Rizal did was he locked that gold up in a trust account for 50 years. And the thing about a trust account for 50 years is if you say you own something and you haven't managed to get control of it, after 50 years, you've lost it under something called the statute of limitations. So that gold went into hiding for 50 years, and those 50 years ended in 2005. But we didn't manage to get our gold out. And the reason why is because the banks refused. The man who's the authorized signature authority, and you'll see a little clip of him, that's Wolfgang Struck. He kept writing to the banks and saying, I have the right to withdraw the money. I have the right to find out how much money it is now because it's been accruing interest. And the banks wouldn't give him the time of day. And when I started flailing around, which is what I actually did for a number of years after I was fired by the World Bank, he found me. He said, the two of us can get the job done, and that's exactly what we're doing. And who are we teaming up with? We're teaming up with all the countries of the world, the BRICS countries. And one of the people that's helping us is Putin. I've been on Russia television today 3 times. Yeah? So you're starting to get the picture, right? And, you know, Germany just announced that it was going to the BRICS. You know, the day that they announced that, that was the day that I wrote a press release for a 24-hour embargo. And during that 24-hour period, that is when Germany said that they were going to join the BRICS. So what you actually have is you have all of the countries of the world that are all on the same page. And the reason I went to Japan is because there's something called the Status of Forces Agreement. The United States military is actually occupying Japan, and there's a committee that is supposed to take charge if there's going to be an emergency. And I wrote a press release to that joint committee, and I said that joint committee is getting its gold. And that meant that the U.S. military was able to do an end run around the Vatican's shills that are sitting at the top of the Defense Department. So the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, he was there to be a traitor and to make sure that the United States dollar crashed. Now, it's not actually the United States dollar, it's the Federal Reserve note. There's quite a distinction. And Dempsey had a town hall meeting in December, the 2nd of December, and I asked him, I said, if your job is to keep the United States defended, why would you allow the Federal Reserve note to crash? He didn't answer that question. So I asked him the same question in March, but then I said, and besides which, you didn't answer my question back in December. Well, he didn't bother to answer the question, but it was pretty clear that he's there to make sure that the military in the United States was going to end up unilaterally surrendering when the Federal Reserve note crashed. Were they happy about this? Absolutely not. And there was another thing that they were absolutely apoplectic about. That was when there was supposed to be a nuclear bomb dropped on Charleston. Yes, that was on the 7th of October. Instead, what happened was the bomb was detonated 600 miles off the coast. And our friend Putin, he intercepted the military cables showing that that bomb went off. There's seismograph records, there's eyewitness accounts of how the Air Force convey of this nuclear device landed in the base in Charleston. And the 2 heroes that detonated that device in the ocean, as opposed to on the citizens of Charleston, they were fired for their efforts. Yeah, and the Inspector General of the Department of Defense, I wrote him 2 weeks after those illegal firings. And I said, you know that those firings were illegal, that the grounds were absolutely not supported for their discharge. And besides which, you said that you were firing them for something that happened 6 months ago, as opposed to what happened when the bomb was detonated off the coast of Charleston. You better reinstate those heroes. That's John T. Reimer. Well, he didn't. So if you've got the Inspector General who's going to allow you to be fired for no cause, and if you've got the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who's going to fire you, what do you do if you're the military? What they did was they wrote books and they sent them to me. So what I'm trying to say is that the military is now able to do an end run because they're part of this joint committee in Japan that's defending Japan, because there's nothing that's going to harm Japan more than their paper currency crashing. So that's what's happened. We now have a way of getting around the shills that were supposed to unilaterally disarm the United States. So the United States is going to join the BRICS. And after I did that press release, I then sent another embargoed press release to the County Executives of America. Ike Leggett, who's the county executive for Montgomery County, that's the county that I live in, and he was the president. And I have been writing him any number of times this year. And so I sent him this press release, and it said that the County Executives of America do not want the Federal Reserve note to crash and disarm the United States. So the County Executives of America agree that the United States is going to accept this gold that you see up there. That gold is what John F. Kennedy was using when he was going to print Treasury dollars. And 10 days later, he was murdered. So we are going to do what John F. Kennedy was planning on doing. And you want to hear something really sweet? Carolyn Kennedy is the ambassador of the United States in Tokyo. So that's where we are. But it's not going to happen automatically. Everybody has got to be informed. And they're certainly not going to be informed by the newspapers or the television stations. Nobody on the television station is hearing about me. Nobody who reads their newspapers is hearing about me. And 2/3 of the alternative media is there to try to discredit me. Because they, for example, Reddit, Adam Schwartz is the one who started Reddit. Condé Nast bought up Reddit after Adam was suicided. And what did Reddit do in reporting some of the issues I'm reporting on? They had one article which was very confusing. When I went in there to try to correct the confusion, I was embargoed. So the alternative media is not going to give you the automatic news either. You've got to be discerning. And I'm sure if you're here in this conference, you probably are discerning. So it's been a wonderful welcome. It's a great privilege to be here with you. So let's see if I can do my PowerPoint. I stayed up. After I saw some of the really good presentations, I realized I had to do better than, than what I was originally starting out. The reason I have this picture of the switchboard operator, that's actually what my function is. I'm a lawyer, I'm an economist, but more than anything else, I'm a switchboard operator. And I'm sitting right in the heart of the international financial system. That's what the World Bank and the IMF are. And a lot of people are very angry at those institutions because those institutions were taken over by the banking cartel, and they were hijacked. But the actual documents about the articles and the rules for that organization, it's actually intact, and that's how we are taking back our wealth. The World Bank and the IMF were set up in 1944 by none other than Jose Rizal, the guy who had Ferdinand Marcos put that gold in trust. Because what Jose Rizal had in mind was that we, in the citizens of the world, were going to need an institution to reclaim our wealth, to reclaim our gold. And that was what he set up there. And what happened was 6 months after the World Bank was set up, there was a rule that said, and by the way, there's 2 layers of oversight. You've got a resident board, which consists of the countries, and it's not one country, one vote. Right now there's 25 executive directors. In the beginning there were 12, and the 8 countries with the largest economies get their own dedicated executive director, and then the rest are grouped into constituencies, and they reside there. What happened 6 months after the World Bank was set up was they had a secret rule, a memorandum that said the board was only going to vote up or down what the president proposed. And the president, of course, is the lackey of the banking cartel. So that's how they hijacked the World Bank. But the lawyer who had been there when they negotiated the Articles of Agreement, Aaron Brockus, the longest-serving general counsel, I got to know him before I joined the World Bank, but I knew that I wanted to go there. And one of the things about me is I'm incredibly persistent. I'm off the charts persistent. And so if I decided I was going to go to work at the World Bank, I was going to go and work at the World Bank. And that's what I did. And so I learned from Aaron Brockus about what the function of the General Counsel was in the World Bank. They're supposed to sit there between the presidency and the board and mediate. They're there for rule of law in the international financial system. And he told me when Robert McNamara came to the World Bank as the World Bank's president, that's when the place started really going bad. So I knew when Paul Wolfowitz came to the World Bank that we were in for some heavy sledding. But I had been by that time I had been at the World Bank for 10 years. The man who brought me into the World Bank, Ibrahim Shihada, he was the general counsel of OPEC. And I guess he must have understood that I was not, the World Bank is, it's got all the countries of the world and it's a big bureaucracy. But I have been teaming up with the whistleblowers inside the World Bank. So there's the way it works at the World Bank, you have 5% of the people there, they were actually hired by mistake because they try to find people who are going to go with the flow and just be there for their bureaucracy. But every now and then, there'll be people who are there for the actual mission of the organization. And I think Ibrahim Shihada thought that I was going to be doing that. And that's exactly why he brought me in there, and that's exactly what I've been doing. And it's been a great privilege. But so I've been teaming up with the other whistleblowers at the World Bank, and it is a dream team. I would be sitting at home, and one of them would call me up and say, Karen, there's a hearing in Congress. I would jump in the car, I would go there. And so, for example, Timothy Geithner was at one of those hearings. One of the things that happened in the US Congress was some of them would actually do their job. Yeah, Senator Richard Lugar was one of the ones who did their job. When I reported to Senator Lugar that there was all this corruption inside the World Bank, Senator Lugar wrote 3 letters to the World Bank saying, don't fire this lady. They fired me anyway. But by the way, one of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, it was chaired by Joe Biden. It had 2 junior senators on there, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And I have been, if you want to find out what's been going on, you can just go on my website and you can see the letters that I've been writing to these people. I have been nagging them. I have been tagging them. I have been, they are absolutely, there's nowhere for them to hide. And that's where we are now. And Putin knows this, and he knows that this has been documented in front of the American citizens, and he knows that the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, together with the citizens of the United States who do not want their country to be corrupt and a laughing stock among the rest of the world, that we're rolling up our sleeves, and that's the good news, but it's also the bad news, because the minute we take over, we're just like the Titanic that's steering away from the iceberg. All of a sudden, whatever happens, it's going to be on our beat. We're going to have to try to figure out how to transition. We're going to have to try to figure out how to undo centuries and millennia of slavery. There were 2 comments that I wanted to take issue with. One of the comments was from Greg Fredericks, where he said that humanity was degraded from what it used to be. If we were so degraded, we wouldn't be where we are right now. We're ready to take over. And whoever those ETs are, we're going to kick their butts. One of the things about me is that I'm not only off the charts persistent, but I am very aggressive. My father found this out when I was 4. He was ignoring me. I hit him with everything I had in the balls. I did. And he was a fabulous, fabulous father. And, you know, he was sort of stunned. But after that, he didn't ignore me. So, I mean, we are going to kick butt. Whoever thinks that they're going to control humanity has got another thought coming to them. But this is not going to be easy. If we're in charge, how are we going to sort things through? It's a very serious, difficult task that we're facing. So it's good news and bad news. Well, let me hustle on with our PowerPoint. Okay. This is to show you where we are now. Toto the dog, that's the World Bank whistleblowers. This fellow, that's the banking cartel. That's the Bank for International Settlements, which thinks that we need to work 3 months out of the year for them. That's our tax money, which is going directly to the banking cartel. It's not going for roads or bridges or education or anything. And that is just a scam. This business about interest on country currency, that's their idea. That's not our idea. And that system is going down. It's going down as quickly as we can tell our governments to sign the agreement that I wrote to all of the governments. What did I do in Tokyo? I wrote a letter. It said, "Dear government, all of your paper dollars are not worth the paper they're written on. And they are going to be exchanged for gold currency, which is coming out of the gold that you saw that belongs to humanity. And we have to have a transition period because there's going to be a mint that has to mint this currency. So we're going to have to figure out how to have this transition. But the governments are not responding to the letters. A couple of them did. Now, in the Parliament, the UK Parliament, one of the members of Parliament, by the way, I got a couple of statements up in the UK Parliament together with a World Bank whistleblower named Elaine Colville. And I'm going to tell you that there's a power transition model. Actually, let's move to the next slide and you can see. Or no, that's not the next slide. This slide is telling you actually where we are. Some people like to say that I'm sort of making things up about being the acting general counsel of the World Bank, which is what I am. I'm not inside the World Bank because there's a company, Allied Barton, which provides the security personnel. And that company is owned by the banking cartel. So I can't get into the building. But we fired that group and we hired a different group. And that different group is going to just take over. We're retiring the banking cartel. And the way we're doing it, all of this is done through the rule of law. Because that trust account that I was telling you about, there are certificates, gold certificates. The banks issued the gold certificates to gather up some of the gold in the 30s. And those certificates carry interest, payable in gold. And that interest has been compounding. So the banks owe us in the quadrillions. And they are insolvent and they're going to be declared bankrupt. That's the way, that's the law. However, the governments are not going to rush and do this because as far as they're concerned, that banking cartel is all powerful. And so they're not going to stick their necks out. So you, citizens, have got to ask them why they are not declaring that banking cartel bankrupt. Why are you paying your tax dollars out of the country to that banking cartel? And be very, very persistent about those questions. I just read from Julian Assange that there's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit that the court is refusing to tell anybody about. They say it's not in the national security interest. You just can't let them get away with that. you have to tell them that they have to tell you what's going on. You have to tell them.